request for bill introductions. Representative Helmer, I'm so sorry. You have a request for a bill introduction? Yes, please. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I spell your name while I'm trying to pronounce it in my head and it doesn't work.
That's okay because you usually call me Cheryl. So I'm Representative Cheryl Helmer. I'm usually in the House and she usually calls me Cheryl. I have a request for a bill. It is a request about legal guardianship and conservatorship. And I stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, any objection to the request for the introduction? Seeing none, thank you very much. And yes, Cheryl, it's good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed my time here.
Thanks. Any other requests for bill introductions, committee? Seeing none at this time, we may refer back to that on the agenda. Committee, we're going to go ahead and open the hearing on Senate Bill 318. Amelia, will you give us an overview?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 318 would provide a sales tax exemption for certain purchases to reconstruct, repair, or replace agricultural fencing that was damaged or destroyed by wildfires beginning January 1 of 2021. Currently in statute, there is a statute, KSA 793606D, that expired after calendar year 2018. It was specifically referencing wildfires that occurred during calendar years of 16 and 17, and then provided refunds for during 17 and 18. That particular statute is the statute we have here that is being proposed to be amended to provide that sales tax exemption for personal property and services purchased on and after January 1 of 2021, necessary to reconstruct, repair, replace any fence that was damaged or destroyed by wildfires that occurred on and after January 1, 2021. Those fences do need to be fences used to enclose land devoted to agricultural use. The statute does also provide a process for both claiming a refund if the person has already paid the sales tax, or obtaining and using an exemption certificate for purchases. And the bill would take effect from and after publication in the Kansas Register.
Thank you, Amelia. Committee, any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Solentrop, I missed that.
Madam Chair, just real quick, does this deviate anything much from the prior similar bills? Pretty much the same thing, or what?
This particular bill, if you look at the amendment, it's pretty much one page. It is essentially striking the calendar year references in the statute and making it an ongoing exemption that would begin January 1st of 2021, so it would not need to be renewed every year.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amelia. Senator Bowers? We're lucky to have two good friends this morning. Welcome to the Tax Committee.
Well, good morning.
Good morning. I would like to thank you for your effort and your leadership on this bill.
Yes, and so there are two senators in this four-county, called the four-county fire. So Senator Billinger also is a co-signer well with the chairman. And then in the House side, we had 3 House members and the tax chairman over there who have an identical bill we heard yesterday, and it's House Bill 2464. The most important piece of this is, and Senator Solenstrop, you're exactly right, what Representative Waymaster and I found ourselves situation in is we're off session, and we thought we could just dust off this law and let the fellows who are starting to buy their fencing supplies be able to not pay sales tax. And it expires every time we have an event. Our main purpose was not to have this expire, so we could just pick up with the next firestorm. It's not if, but when. The other important piece is it's retroactive, so the farmers who are buying supplies right now can apply for a rebate. The agency is ready to go with this as soon as we get it to them. I am going to let my friends from Russell County and Osborne County speak behind me. There is one thing that when we pre-filed this, we were up against a tight deadline that the fire was December 15th. By the time the agencies had come out, and by the way, Attorney General Derek Schmidt's in the room. He toured with us, toured with Chris, who you'll hear from in a minute, and to see the damage out there. But I want to let you also know why I have this time. All the agencies that came out, we'd had the governor, we had the ag secretary, we had the insurance commissioner, all came out to this area, and it didn't make the news an awful lot in the state. So we wanted to make sure we called that to your attention. One more thing that we learned through this process of visiting with the ranchers is there are some personal items like you and I have in our homes in safe boxes, such as your car titles, and a farmer rancher doesn't have one truck and one car, it's multiple. They have trailers, ATVs, all sorts of things. So those also burn up in their homes too. So the Department of Revenue is replacing all those titles at no charge, and they've already started that process. And also in that lockbox that probably burnt to something that you don't even recognize is your birth certificates, marriage certificates. So Vital Statistics was supplying those as well at no charge to the folks. So the state of Kansas has really picked up, and this is important of those small things that we discovered when we were touring. And then I would be amiss if I didn't say this, listening in at home are FFA kids. And some of them were with us yesterday from a leadership meeting they had at Washburn. So right now we have Minneapolis High School, where I graduated from, listening in. August Hewells had sent a note on what the FFA kids are doing. So across the nation, even in Kansas, hay is coming in on trailers. So these FFA kids are working with other FFA members from around the state bringing in hay. And they really enjoyed themselves yesterday, learning the process of what we do here and solving problems. So a shout out to that class. And I'm going to stop talking because that's basically what the bill does. It's retroactive. It never expires. So we are ready to go next time we have a wildfire.
Thank you, Senator Bowers.
Thank you.
Committee, any questions? Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This might have been a question for Revisor, but I didn't get it asked, and you are the lead sponsor. It says that this is to reconstruct, repair, or replace any fence that was damaged or destroyed by wildfire.
Yes.
Living rural, I know a wildfire or a fire can come through, and it can do damage to T-post and other fencing that starts rusting. But I decided, well, it's going to be good for a number of years, but eventually it's going to need replaced. So my question is, if a landowner decides to delay replacing or repairing a fence that is rusty because of a fire, or T-posts who are now rusting because there's no paint quicker, and they delay it 3 or 4 years, would they still, I guess, is there a time frame? Is there a sunset?
I don't believe so. Amelia, would that be correct? Perhaps she could. I don't think that's my intention on this.
Senator Amelia, would you mind?
The proposed amendment to the bill would no longer have that requirement of requesting it within a certain amount of time unless there are some rules possibly under other statutes that provide for sales tax refunds that might come into play if there's, but this particular bill is an ongoing sales tax exemption. But we might, just off the top of my head, I can't remember if there's a general sales tax refund provision that might come into play.
Thank you. I think we'll discuss that further when we work the bill. We are planning on working the bill today, Senator, so.
Oh, thank you very much.
Any other questions for Senator Bowers? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next is Director of Russell Ellsworth County Emergency Management. Keith, welcome to the Tax Committee. I wish it was under different conditions.
I do too. Thank you very much for having me this morning. I'll keep it very brief. I think you have my testimony in front of you. I am the Director of Emergency Management for Russell and Ellsworth County, but I'm also a fourth-generation Russell County stockman and farmer. And I'm also a volunteer firefighter and a advanced emergency medical technician. This is the worst fire I've ever seen in my 20-plus years as being a firefighter. And the reason we'd like to come before you is just because when we were doing some rough figures, you know, the tax on $20,000 per mile worth of fence is going to be about $1,000 we're figuring on just the supplies. So any help that you guys can give our farmers would be fantastic. I talked to Chris Friday morning. You know, the fire happened on Wednesday. We were out there all day, all night, till Thursday night. And I talked to him Friday morning and I said, Chris, what do you need? And he said, $1 million would be nice. I said, Chris, if I had $1 million, I'd give it to you right now. So that's how we treat each other. And if you have any questions for me.
Thank you very much, Keith, for your testimony. Committee, any questions? I will take you up on your offer of any help, and we may possibly have an amendment on the bill. So.
And if anybody would like to come out and see the area, get a hold of Elaine and she can get a hold of me and I'll arrange a tour and take you around. I got to take Attorney General Schmidt around during the tour, and you probably still smell like smoke from my pickup, don't you? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we recognize Chris Felton to testify to the committee. Welcome to the committee, and I'm so sorry for all your losses.
First of all, I'd like to thank for the opportunity to speak today, and bear with me. I'm starting out bad. I'm going to read you the testimony that I've sent forth. I'll go through it and forget too much if I don't. It's 3-4 minutes. And like I said, bear with me.
If I may, we do have a video. Would you like to start with the video?
No, can we end with the video? Because that one,
Absolutely.
that bangs me pretty good. So if you don't mind, I'll proceed with this. First, I'd like to thank you again, once again, to speak with you today. I'm going to start with a remark that Ronald Reagan made when he addressed the future farmers of America in July of '87. He explained when he was in Las Vegas to address the meeting, a fellow recognized him and asked what his plans were in Vegas. After Reagan's explanation, the gentleman asked, "What are a bunch of farmers and ranchers doing in a place like Vegas?" Reagan replied, "Buster, they're in a business that makes a Las Vegas crap table look like a guaranteed annual income." Of all the perils confronted in the early pioneers in Kansas, the prairie fire ranked first by a large margin. They could wipe out crops in a matter of minutes and without regard to person or station. In 1859, a hunting party explored an area ravaged by fire, the grass and hills black as far as the eye could see. The party pressed on, eventually pushing through a small tributary which led them to a site abundant in water, timber, and bison. It is recorded that one of the hunters described the site as paradise, and the tributary became known as Paradise Creek. December 15th, 2021, was just another windy day in Kansas, although we had been warned for over a week that a significant weather event was on the horizon. Due to the ongoing drought and high winds, the fire level was extreme. Little did I know, 12 hours later, not only was my home gone, but the business I'd spent the last 40 years building. The 350 Angus cows that I spent my lifetime breeding would never be the same. My wife often states that our cattle are our employees. Not only do we take care of their interests before our own, but they are also there to create a product we can merchandise as our only source of income. As of today, we lost a third of our employees. And anyone in the business will tell you that economic impact of losing that, coupled with the COVID-era supply chain issues and resulting inflation on all building costs, doesn't excite anyone's prospect on rebuilding. As a member of the Volunteer Fire Department Paradise, I remember the events of the day vividly. I'd just eaten lunch and was finishing up some work in the office because of the windy day. I suddenly smelled smoke. I left my phone in the truck and ran from the house telling my wife I would call her as soon as I knew more. My fears of the day became reality when I learned the fire had started southwest of our ranch and headed right towards us. My wife Susan and daughter, who had been home from law school, were soon greeted by the sheriff demanding that we evacuate our home immediately. I was intent on trying to say what I could. I began watering the yard, watering the house, hoping I could spare it. After an hour in the dark blaze and 60-degree weather, I got an update from my fellow firefighters that the fire had switched and it was coming our way. And with that, Mother Nature had other plans. The wind had shifted, multiplied in strength. I fell to my knees, holding hope that my efforts would result in returning home at some point. Our ranch dog, Archie, would not even leave the ranch that day. I tried to get him into my truck, but he refused. I had to leave. The last thing I did was leave him on the seat of our ATV, parked in the gravel driveway. My wife called and asked if I could save her engagement ring. I ran back into the house, only to return to my friend and the fire chief telling me, leave or face certain death. As we finally evacuated Paradise and headed east, I knew the house and ranch were gone. Our cattle were in danger, but seeing the damage the next day was devastating. The next morning, my wife and I pulled into the remains, smoke still thick in the air, saw that life had survived. Our dog Archie was huddled in the seat of the ATV. After the tearful reunion, my wife and I proceeded to find the bred heifers that had been burned alive during the night. Driving through pastures, we were horrified to see their scorched bodies. They had nowhere to escape. Euthanizing the critically injured was a job that I couldn't face alone, and thankfully I had help from fellow ranchers. Watching the cattle you spend a lifetime caring for suffer is what I believe to be the most gut-wrenching, heartbreaking experience I've ever had to face. Those that survived were taken to some of our closest friends, family, and neighbors. A young man who was reporting on the fire begged me to talk to him. I told him I couldn't do it. He demanded that I tell my story. So I did. He shared the video on YouTube titled "The Largest Wildfire That No One Knows About, but You Should." In the rawness of the morning, I realized how important it is for people that have no idea where their food comes from to understand and have awareness of what we do and the risk we take. The young man interviewing me choked up, stating, "You feed America." I said, "We try." God spared my family, my best 40 cows, and the knowledge that the ag community is strong. I have received calls as far away as Georgia to help with friends and family and fellow producers offering numerous resources for the surviving cattle. Neighbors also suffered tremendous losses as myself. There's been daily meals set up at the church to take care of us, makeshift stores to get people anything they need from shoes to toilet paper. When people won't read the news and wonder if there are any good people left, send them to Paradise. Excuse me. Ranchers are a breed of people who are there to help others, and I hate asking for help because I am one of those that hates it. Today I stand before you broken. Everything I've worked for burned by the flames, but humbly knowing that I have to ask for help. It not only destroyed all my personal belongings, but took a third of my future business earnings. I'm asking for your help today in the form of the sales tax exemption for the fencing supplies done as a result of this unforeseen disaster. Our ranch alone has 28 miles of fence, so the herd can return to green grass that I know will be restored someday. This fence comes at an estimated cost of $20,000 a mile to rebuild. We are committed to building back To the stars through difficulty will embolden our cause. Kansas ranchers are strong, but we need your help. One last thing, I'll end with a quote, another one from President Reagan. I'm afraid that we're never going to be able to fully come to grips with the problems that the weather creates for the farmer and rancher. We can, however, do our best to eliminate those problems the government creates for our farmers. Thank you.
Well said, Chris. Would you mind if there's any questions for you?
Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's okay. Committee, any questions for Chris? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Again, sorry for your loss. Committee, we do have a short video. Would you like us to play it at this time? No, I don't know if I'll be able to make it through the video, honestly.
This is going to be your warning. If you have a sensitive stomach, you do not want to see animals burned alive, essentially, by a wildfire. Don't watch this video any longer. Okay, this is your warning. What you're looking at is the remains of a fire that burned through north central Kansas near the town of Paradise. And this is one of the most disturbing sights I've ever seen covering wildfires over a span of the last 15 years. So in the field, you can see just dead and now bloated cattle sitting where they burned alive. The most disturbing part is right here in this ditch. You can see where they had just piled up trying to escape the flames as they were being pushed by over hurricane force winds. And once the weight of the cattle broke through the barbed wire, they rolled over and they ended up here in the bar ditch. It's on both sides of the road. You can hear the cattle in the distance. They've heard our voices and hear the noise, and they're looking for humans, some food, some water. There's even cattle, though, unfortunately, like that one standing in the middle of the field there, that need to be euthanized. The wounds they have are just horrific from the flames that went through here. This fire was absolutely massive. This is a lot of rolling hills, as you can see, and the flames just were ripping through here again, at times pushed by winds gusting over 70 miles an hour up to 100 miles an hour. Gusts were recorded in nearby Russell. Oh, you can hear that poor cow suffering. The cost is horrific, not only just to animals, but also to the people. Numerous homes burned here in the area as well. Farmers' fields, farmers' crops, and animals that just had no place to go, trapped in by the barbed wire and overcome by those flames ripping through here, literally with the force of a hurricane.
A couple of hours later, we followed a tractor carrying a water trough for some cattle in dry pens. They had survived the flames and smoke somehow inside of these pens. It ended up that the pastures of dead cattle belonged to this rancher. His name is Chris Felton. Reluctantly at first, Chris graciously interviewed with us so we can better understand the depth of this devastation.
And your ranch is named Felton Ranch?
Felton Ranch.
Talk about last night, sir.
You knew it was coming. You just hoped it would go around you or miss you somewhere or another, and the wind's just shifting from southwest to west to north, and it just encircled us, and I mean, there was nothing you could do.
It's more than just a house, though. You've lost part of your livelihood here.
It is. We lost a lot of cattle. We didn't lose all the cattle. I mean, we're thankful for that. I mean, they could have been pinned against the fence and not been able to escape. So we've still maintained some livelihood, some to go forward with.
How hard was it though to leave, knowing what you're leaving behind? The animals. I mean, I grew up. We had a feedlot. I know what my dad would have been like.
It's hard. I mean, leave them because you know there's nothing you could do. And except these animals in the dry lot here where there was no grass to fire. I mean, they suffered smoke around here a lot, but they survived and thrived through it well. So we're thankful for that. I mean, thankful that the ones that survived.
This is cattle country, right, in Kansas?
True.
I mean, have you ever, when I talked about severe weather here, you think of tornadoes. You think of a tornado coming through. Do you ever imagine a fire like this?
Oh, I've been on the volunteer firefighter here for 20 years, and we've had some bad ones and in recent years, but nothing of this. I mean, the wind is what makes everything. I mean, when you get 100-mile-an-hour winds, there's so little you can do. And yeah, we have fires when the wind's blowing 15, 20, you can get them stopped. But, you know, I think a lot of the trucks last night, we just got the point, there was no point. It was, you know, too much safety concern. And they pulled a lot of them out. There just wasn't anything to do. You just hope it burns out.
What can people help? How can people help you? I know ranchers are going to watch this video and they're going to bring some hay, water.
Oh, yeah, and we've had a lot of response to that. Most of ours right here, because our grass is totally gone and all of our hay is burned up, that we're probably going to, you know, we're going to move them out to friends we have all over the state and just try to disperse them rather than trying to haul all that hay in here because, I mean, they're standing on burnt ground and we will be calving here in, you know, in a month and a half, and where I've lost my buildings to calving and whatnot, I have no choice but to send them elsewhere. And I'm not saying we still don't want the hay, that we wouldn't divert it to, you know, where it's needed. But I don't know. I guess the biggest thing is the awareness of what we do. Excuse me. And the risk that we take to do it. But it's part of it. It's what we do. So
You feed America.
we try. We try. But we'll rebuild. We'll keep it going somehow. But I mean, we have a lot of, neighbors, friends. I've had them call from as far as Georgia wanting to help, and that's all you can ask for. So we'll move on.
Sorry. One thing people, sorry. This is all you have right now.
Right? It is. I don't do anything else. I mean, I run cows. That's all I do for a living. I don't farm. I don't do anything else. So
What I'm saying is, you just have the clothes on your back, but you're out here taking care of animals first.
got lots of friends to help. Yeah, we have to. You can't make them suffer any more than they have already. I mean, it's enough. So, yeah, we have to take care of them, no matter what. That's why we've had people bringing in hay already to feed them this morning. Just, you know, they're parched and they're hungry, and it's that, you know, time of year when it's getting cold when you got to nutritionally feed them. But yeah, it's what we do.
And so all your structures are gone, home, everything, right?
This is about the biggest structure I have. Yeah.
Wow. Anything else you think of, Brandon?
Where do you go with cleaning the cattle up? What's your next step?
I guess
Oh,
find
like I
healthy
said,
ones.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm gonna distribute them out. I mean, to friends, family, even, and help them calve them out, and hopefully, you know, it'll rain again. It'll rain, and this will go away, and we'll recoup. But it won't do in a year. We won't be able to run very many unless we get exceptional moisture next year. I mean, you've seen the land. It's torched it. It's really hurt the grass, and I mean, it'll come back. We had prairie fires forever in this country. I mean, that's why this town got named Paradise, because they came up over the hill and it wasn't burned, so they called it Paradise back in the Buffalo days. And so it will come back. It will continue.
It'll be paradise again.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll survive. we'll make it one way or the other.
Thank you, committee, and I thank you, Chris. I think you bring some light to the industry of agriculture and ranchers. I don't know that all Kansans are aware of what hardships we can go through and what difficulties. So I appreciate you coming before the committee, and we're going to do what we can to help. Yeah, thank you. Dean Clark from KLA. Dean, if you could keep it very brief, we want to work this bill.
Absolutely, I will be brief. Thank you, Chairwoman Tyson, for holding this and for expediting this process. Two things out of my testimony that I'd like to point out. Livestock producers were, as you saw, were hit especially hard by this, not only losing feed, fence, grazing, but on top of losing that and on top of losing their homes, with losing cattle, they're now without a paycheck on top of everything else. And so that's something that to keep in mind, the additional burden that these are on our livestock producers. And the second thing, last thing that I'd like to pull out is that this is not a new concept, as you're well aware. It was first introduced in 1996 after 80,000 acres were burned in Barber and Comanche counties. And then, as many of you are aware, again in 2016 and 2017. The only difference here is that it makes it on a more permanent basis, a concept that KLA supports, so we don't have to come back to this process. So thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Dean. Committee, any questions? Senator Kirshen.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your participation. My question is, KLA has this foundation for relief. How's that going over? Can you give a report on the responses been?
Yes, absolutely. So KLA has a charitable arm called the Kansas Livestock Foundation. Immediately following those fires, as we did after the previous ones, opened that up to cash donations and to help organize some of the donations of hay, feed, fencing materials. To date, we have received over 1,150 separate cash donations, totaling over $1.5 million that will be distributed to those livestock producers, and are still open to receiving cash donations at the moment.
Thank you. But I'll tell you really quickly, he's talking over 300 head. That doesn't go very far on that $1 million when you, because this is one rancher here. It sounds like a lot of money, but you do the math. If it's an average herd and you're saying about $2,000 a head, you're already at 600K. Yeah, this is devastating loss. But thank you for the people that have stepped up. Any other questions, committee? Senator Holland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank the conferees for appearing before us today. I'm a small business owner. I'm ignorant when it comes to running, obviously, a ranching or farming operation. My concern, particularly for this industry and other ag-related ones, would be, however, is that obviously you go to the grocery store, you see the ever-rising prices of beef. However, maybe this is just anecdotal, my suspicion or what I've heard is that the prices that the ranchers are getting for their livestock doesn't reflect that. Mm-hmm. And so while we're here today to address this immediate ask, and I'm sure we'll come through for you guys on that, what I'm asking to you, sir, and others in the industry is, are there other longer, more broad things? And I know nobody likes to rely on government, but I'm just wondering is that I'm wondering about the resiliency of the industry to bounce back if you don't have the market things there long-term in place to make it desirable to rebuild again. And I'm just concerned about what that means to our existing ranchers out there. So just in the future, if you guys would like to get back to the committee or particularly myself, I'd be interested to know is just what other longer term challenges do you face to rebuild as an industry given this? Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the time.
Okay. Thank you. Maybe that would be a good idea for an informational hearing at some point, Senator. Thank you for bringing that up. I don't think people realize the dangers, the hardships. One of the most dangerous industries is farming and ranching. And, you know, you deal with chemicals, you deal with the animals, you deal with the business. It's a very complex field to be in. So, yeah, thank you. I would like to draw your attention, committee, to written testimony from the Attorney General, Derek Schmidt, and from Farm Bureau's President, Richard Feltz. And I would also like to thank the distinguished Attorney General for joining us in the committee room today to show your support. Much appreciated. Thank you. Committee, I know it's rare, but I did announce in Tuesday that we would be working the bill. I know there's other people that would like to speak to it, but we're about out of time. We lose the room in a few minutes, and we're supposed to have another hearing. So I'm sorry. Diane is awesome. She thought there was another conferee. He's for another bill, so I appreciate it. You guys, I am going to ask, I don't think we need an overview for the bill since we just had the hearing. Committee, I do have an amendment for the bill. Would you pass those out, please, Diane? I listened to the committee, the testimony, and previously, in a couple of years now, the Senate has passed this legislation out that would allow the county commissioners an option to exempt the commercial and agriculture buildings from property tax. Currently, they only have an option to exempt homes during an emergency or natural disaster. So what this amendment would do would expand the bill to allow current existing language where they can exempt the home, but they can also have the option of exempting any agriculture or commercial buildings from property tax. I know a majority of the committee members have seen it because the Senate has passed it several times. In fact, I think the last time we passed it was 39-1. And the senator that did vote no is on this committee. I don't know if, though, anyhow, Senator Baumgartner.
Are you ready for a motion on the amendment?
I would take a motion. Actually, I'll make the motion and you'll be the second. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, Senator Tyson, I move that we amend the bill to include the contents of Senate Bill 2 of the 2020 special session.
Second.
And if I may finish on my amendment, Senator.
Okay.
I would like to allow language to, for technical amendments for the revisers, including, Amelia.
In a technical sense, the provisions of this Senate Bill number 2 would make these provisions retroactive to tax year 2019. And other provisions within the existing statute have a time limitation on filing applications for relief under this provision. So from a technical perspective, if you want to allow abatements and refunds to go back to tax year 2019, there should be a specific provision specifically allowing that because we're beyond the one-year time limit that is in the provision.
It would just allow people, what we're doing by making this retroactive is we're allowing the tornado victims from the Leavenworth, Douglas County area to also apply for this property tax exemption. And again, it is at the discretion of the county commissioners. It's only if the county commissioners allow that exemption. So, Senator Baumgartner.
I second the amendment.
Okay, it has been moved by Senator Tyson, seconded by Senator Baumgartner. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Committee, what are your wishes on the bill? Senator Baumgartner.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass out the bill as amended favorably.
I'll second the bill. Oh, seconded by Senator Holland. So it's been moved by Senator Baumgardner, seconded by Senator Holland. Discussion on the motion. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, and this is not really the committee meeting or the legislation to do anything about it, but just for brief information for the committee, my understanding is from ag producers in my part of the country that our neighboring state to the south exempts all agriculture supplies for ag producers. I would like for us to consider that. Again, this is not the place, but had we had that in place, this type of legislation would not be necessary because these ag producers would already have the sales tax exemption for fencing that was destroyed or damaged by fire. So I just thought that I would mention that. Again, not going to do anything about it today, but for the information of the committee. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. And I would ask, after we finish this bill, would you consider making a bill request for that language, and we could move forward?
Madam Chairman, I'll be happy to do that. I do not have an RS or anything, but I can work with revisers on that.
We're a little flexible in this committee.
Okay, thank you.
We get our work done, or finished, as my dad would say. Committee, is there any other discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, committee, for your work on this, and thank you again for your testimony and all your work. Committee, we were scheduled to have another hearing. However, we lose the room in about 3 minutes. So I will, and I had talked to the people that had requested Senate Bill 306. So we will reschedule that hearing for another day. And I will call on Senator Peck for a bill request.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would like to see this committee introduce legislation that would provide a sales tax exemption for our agriculture producers when they are purchasing agriculture supplies such as fencing supplies. And we'll get the wording with the reviser of statutes, but I appreciate the opportunity to make that bill request.
Thank you, Senator. And it would be sales tax only is what you're,
Yes.
on the fencing material? Okay.
Madam Chairman, it would be sales tax only. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Is there any objection on the bill request? Any questions? Seeing none, we'll make the request. Thank you, Senator. Committee, are there any other requests for bill introductions? Any other business to be brought before the committee? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.